Hi. If you didn't get a chance, sign in. And there's also some cookies out there, which is a must. I already had mine. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Kim Stankovich. I'm the Faculty Professional Development and Teaching Innovations Coordinator. It's such a big title. You probably get a lot of emails from me. I'm really excited to welcome you all to this event today, Future Ready AI Business and Industry. So I'll start by introducing our two panelists. We have Rajesh Jha, and he is the founder and CEO of SimInsights. He leads a mission-driven team pioneering AI and XR-powered simulation and digital twin technology to transform how people learn, train, and work. And since 2009, SimInsights has advanced immersive learning across major industries. And beyond this, he serves as a board member for the County of Orange Workforce Development. So welcome, Raj. All right, and we also have Thomas Pratt. He is the president of Proformance AI. Thomas is an experienced leader in learning and performance solutions, applying emerging technologies, also including XR and AI, to improve workforce capability. He has partnered with organizations including Microsoft, Porsche, Honda, Intel, and more. He has served as vice president at Yale Communications and Cox Communications, and he serves on the board of the Automotive Training Manager Council and founded the Automotive Roundtable. That's a lot. All right, welcome, Thomas. So what's going to happen is each of our guest speakers are going to do a short presentation, and then they'll take their seats here, and we have some questions for them, and then we'll try to save maybe 10 or 15 minutes at the end for some Q&A. All right, so Raj, take it away.
I'm going to sit here and...
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me in the back? It's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Before I begin, I have just a few slides to kind of share some initial remarks that might help with the Q&A later. But before I dive into those slides, I want to tell you a little bit about my journey. How did I get here? So I came to US in '97 to be a graduate student in engineering, mechanical engineering. I went to Ohio State University, and by the end of my couple of years of master's degree, I was kind of convinced that I didn't want to do a PhD in that area. I wanted to go into AI and computer science and robotics. But I come from a very humble background in India, and it was really hard to give up on a nice salary and everything. So I thought, okay, I'll go work for a couple of years and then go back to do a PhD. So I joined a company in Michigan, a software company, and within 6 months, I was bored out of my mind. So I thought that my plan might have to be cut down from 2 years to 6 months. So I started applying and got a fellowship to do PhD at Penn, University of Pennsylvania. And I was all set to go, and then I found out that if I applied for a green card, I could get it in 6 months, which usually takes forever, as some of you might know. And so I thought, okay, the right thing for me to do is to get the green card and then go to college. So I postponed, and then the 6 months became 2 years. And in those 2 years, my company promoted me and sent me all over the world. And I got a taste of this other life. And I thought, maybe I'll just give up on my dreams to become a professor like some of you here. And I'll try to go get an MBA down the road and start a company. So I said no to that path altogether. And then I did, stay in the company for a long time and got an MBA and started this company in 2009. But the teacher bug that I had so deep inside me didn't leave me. So even the company was in education and training. So I started in 2009 and quickly realized that, the thought I had that I'll make simulations for K-12 and that'll work out and then I'll move on to real engineering, that is not going to work out because it's really hard to launch a company in K-12. So I went back, pivoted the company back to enterprise software. And so that's why I'm here to tell the story that my company is still here and doing well, right? In another timeline, I would have quit. I would be like, okay, entrepreneurship is not for me. Let me go back and get a job. I was good at that, but I didn't do that. So I think it's really important to share my background because some of the things I say will make sense when you know a little bit about who I am. So even back then when I was pivoting from ME to computer science, I knew that AI was just around the corner. As optimists always think, it's like, oh, it's just like 5 years away. And I wanted to play a part in that because I really liked math. And so when these days when people talk about AI everywhere, for me, it's a 25-year-old topic. And the shocking thing is that everything is happening exactly as predicted like decades ago. So the professors back then, they were looking at the processing that happens in the retina, how many instructions per second can the retina do, and they're looking at Moore's law and extrapolating how many million instructions per second can the chips do in year 2000, 2010, and so on. And they predicted that in late 2020s, computers will do stuff that humans can do, or advanced animals can do, like monkeys and stuff. And so the timeline is scary accurate, if you think about it. It's like so that's kind of my perspective, which is a little bit different than what you hear in the popular media. The only other thing I'll share from that time is, if you go back and read the books that came out in the 80s from universities, people like there was a person who founded the Robotics Institute at Carnegie Mellon. They laid out that when the computers get as good as humans, all this stuff will happen, job displacement and everything. None of this is new if you are in that, if you read those books and listen to those people. And so I just wanted to start by kind of sharing that part of, next slide, please. So, So the lady that you see there, she's a researcher. She was a researcher at OpenAI. And in 2023, she published a paper in which she presented the results of basically an analysis that, how many people have heard the word ONET from Department of Labor? Okay, at least, great. So ONET breaks down all these different jobs into a lot of different tasks and then also skills and so on. And so her analysis was to look at all those tasks and back in 2023, ask the question, which of these tasks can be sped up by a factor of 2 by just using an LLM? Just going to ChatGPT and giving it the task. And if the answer was that, okay, these tasks can be sped up by twice, then she gave it a score of 1. So that index came to be known by her name, Elondu's metric, or beta. So, and then then there were other tasks that could be sped up by twice, but only if you wrote some software on top of the large language model. And that got the score of 0.5. And then there were tasks that you couldn't speed them up no matter what you did. And that got the beta of 0. So what you're seeing in this left side picture is the beta of 0 tasks that are being done by Claude, which is the LLM from Anthropic. It's pretty much the same thing as Gemini from Google and ChatGPT from OpenAI. And here's the beta 0.5, and here's the beta of 1. So a huge number of tasks, like 68% of the time that Claude is spending is on those tasks that can be completely sped up by just the LLM. And then 29% of Claude is on tasks that, in order to be sped up twice, they need somebody to write some software on top of the LLM. So this is your agentic AI kind of world. And then there are these tasks. So just keep this in mind, and let me tell you about this chart. Has anybody seen this chart on the right side? Okay, okay, good. So I'll explain this a little bit. So in this circle here, you see all of these different industries. Sorry if this is too small to read. But like at the top, it says management and business and finance, computer and math, architecture. You get the idea, all those. Now the blue spider kind of shape that you see there, that is on this radial axis, which starts out 0 at the middle and 1 at the outer end. So if something is close to the outer end, that means that an LLM, that it basically it's like a beta of 1. That means the LLM can almost do that job completely, right? And so on. So some of the jobs like over here, you see the AI cannot really touch that very much, right? You can only do a very small part of that. So the blue just means that the theoretical capacity of the models that we can all buy right now with our credit card or try it for free is like this across these jobs. So there are some jobs that where the people believe that AI can already almost entirely do those, and there are others where it can't, right? But that's just theoretical. Now the red is the practical. So the red is showing where is Claude from Anthropic being actually used. And I want to point out a couple things that struck me. That the shape of the red is pretty much similar to the shape of the blue, right? That makes sense, right? Because if you have a theoretical capacity out there, well, some people will figure that out and they'll start using it and others will follow. The other thing that is really striking is that the red is so much smaller than the blue. That means, and the difference between those two is basically money, right? You realize that, right? Like somebody could go and train somebody and they can take advantage of that gap, or somebody could go and write some software to make it easier. So that's basically economic value just sitting there right now, right, today. And I'm not even talking about like 5 years from now, because 5 years from now, we can expect that the blue will completely fill the gray and the red will expand, maybe it fills more of it to some degree. So the way I put all of this together and synthesize it is that AI is already here and it's totally underutilized, right? And that's economic value that we should all get excited about. Because if you're not excited about it, you're probably getting worried about it. And it's a choice, as we all know in every other aspect of life as well, right? And to those people who say that AI is going to replace the jobs, well, the consensus out there among the informed people is that AI will replace a lot of tasks, but it's not there to replace entire jobs, at least today. Next slide, please. So I thought that there'll be some students in the audience. I'm sorry, but I think it still applies because we hire people, and I often have to go through the process of interviewing and then selecting and then them having them show up and then looking at them 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And I have some observations that I'll share through the slides as well as through the Q&A. I think the people need to realize that there is a new productivity floor being built underneath them, and that they can add value at a higher level. Because AI is going to do a whole bunch of tasks, but it can't do all of the entire job. So this is a exciting message that young people need to really deeply understand, and there's a lot of implications of it. Next slide, please. So one big implication is that today the most valuable skill is knowing how to collaboratively problem solve with the AI. And there's a lot there that we could have discussions for an hour just to unpack that. There's prompt engineering. There's a little bit of coding or a little bit of prompting to write some code that kind of works. I think those are relatively minor in importance. The bigger thing is the psychological shift that students and academia broadly and all of us need to have, which is that we all have this amazing assistant now that knows pretty much everything and never gets tired and all of that. How do we work with it? How do we work with that to solve problems? So that's one key message I have. Next slide, please. And the another one is that, and this is easier said than done, like students and faculty, we all need to understand that there are some things that AI is vastly better than all of us, memories and speed, pattern recognition, data processing. But there are other things that humans are vastly better on: empathy, strategy, complex problem solving, understanding the bigger context. And so what this means is that all of us have to realize that we have a lot to gain if we can direct the AI and a lot less to worry about, I guess. Next one. And this is my last slide. So I think the big part of the unlock is basically work to be done by academia and education, because not only is there like this tension, like is this cheating or is this preparing for the next set of jobs, but like who's going to teach our kids? Like I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I worry about this every day. Like, what are they going to learn and what are they going to find fulfillment in the rest of their life? Like when I was growing up, I didn't have to worry about any of this. All I saw was up and up and up, and this invention and that discovery. But now these kids have a different kind of outlook, and I think education has a huge responsibility to kind of address that. And to unpack that, basically education concerned itself with all these core skills that were stable, which is no longer the case. Now everything is up in the air. And so what should the professors teach? I had a chance to work with another community college to design a course that would teach kind of the things that we build in our company. It took months just to get the one-page syllabus to get approved. And then it was going to take 6 to 9 months to create a course. That pace does not solve this problem that I'm highlighting on the slide. And then there's the question of assessment. If you're, that's in some sense even harder than that, because I've worked with a lot of assessment companies. It's very complicated, and I don't have solutions. I'm just an outsider from the industry. And I think that industry can help. And the reason is because, industry lives or dies by the revenue in next month, next year, next quarter. And so there's a lot more pressure on companies like ours to gain competitive advantage by figuring out how to use AI a little bit faster than the next company. And in the process of doing that, we are having to redefine jobs and tasks. And I can share some more concrete examples later on. And so we can, companies that are agile in this way can be ideal partners for academia, even more so than the companies of the past. My closing comment is that industry-academia partnership is much more important today than it was. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thomas, you have a presentation for us, and then we'll turn it to Q&A.
Thank you for letting me come in and talk at you a little bit. Can you guys hear me okay? So this is going to complement Raj's, even though we didn't plan it this way. Boots on the ground, kids when they graduate, how can I make sure I get a job? That's what I want to talk about. I don't know, in December I spoke to a group of engineers who were split 50-50. Who's adopting AI? Well, they all were adopting it at their companies because a year or so ago, if you had Microsoft Office or Dynamics 365, why not buy the AI license for it? Now you have a Copilot, right? And out of that total group of engineers, half of them had achieved ROIs, and their leadership was very happy. And it's like, go, come on, you're making more competitive. The other half were stressed out. There's such an overwhelming flow, and I'm sure you've all experienced this, of, oh, there's a new tool every week. And then how do I get training on that new tool? Well, we're partners with Microsoft, and they won't stop making online training. And it was originally just for programmers, but now they've recognized something that I'm going to talk about. It's a citizen developer. So employability in AI is not about coding. You don't have to become a programmer, but it's about improving work. So if you can identify the right problem and then match it to the right tool and learn how to use that tool, you're going to drive ROI. You're going to be a very valuable team member. And in order to do that, you don't need to become a programmer. So this category of citizen developers, we kind of invented that with Microsoft, and their clients used to be the IT people, 80% of the time. Well, as it turns out, the IT people are overwhelmed with demand, and they cannot keep up with the application development that their companies need to be competitive, right? So it's up to us. I consider myself, and Rajesh, technically, he's an engineer, he's very technical. I've got people that work for me that have the same background. But really, I see myself as a citizen developer. And what an employer is going to be looking for is not so much how, do you know how to program? What's your favorite AI tool? And do you know how to build stuff with it? It's more like, can you identify an opportunity that makes sense to apply AI? And then once you've identified that, can you match the right tool? And once you've done that, okay, now, is this easy to use, or do I need to take some online training? Just to the point that you can do a pilot, measure the impact. If it's positive, rinse and repeat, right? And the way to deal with the deluge of all the information stuff is just to focus on being effective, pick out an opportunity that really lends itself, and then just focus on that and build it. So that's kind of our approach with the citizen developer concept, and something we're working on with Microsoft right now. And about 2 months after we came up with that idea, the Department of Labor came out with AI literacy framework. And it's kind of the same idea. You can't learn all the tools. And if you learn some of the tools, they'll be different anyways in 2 or 3 weeks. So you really need to teach and develop a framework, critical thinking, very relevant to going to college, right? So if you can find a good problem that's worth solving, and based on the current status of AI tools, match the right tool and apply it to solving that problem, you're valuable. You're going to help that company be more competitive. So that's kind of my message to you guys is, doesn't matter what your major is, doesn't matter. I know some really lend themselves to, engineering, to this type of thought. Humanities, which is where I come from, it's a little bit tougher, and issues are like, are kids really cheating with this and that kind of stuff. But really, it's challenging them to actually solve a problem or create something that's really entertaining, or whatever the objective is, and then apply the right tool and be able to deliver that. That's what I like to see when we interview kids. And really, from Microsoft's point of view and other large enterprise, no one's figured out the best application or the silver bullet. They never will, because it changes too fast. So really, it's how you think about it that's most important. So main skill is identify opportunities. How do I find something that I can make a major impact using an AI tool? And then, right, everybody knows what a prompt is, right? So every 2 days, I get a whole list of new prompts in email, right? Oh, these are the prompts, that's great. And then 2 days later, I get another list. So you kind of have to figure that out for yourself. Whatever improves workflows, measure impact, those would be the skills I think that matter the most. And I'm going to show you one real world example here. But first, I'm going to grab my water so I can keep talking. Apologize. Let's do that, guy. So one of my instructional designers, writers,
Laura.
build a tool. Anybody familiar with Robert Mager and his performance-based learning strategy? If you fix cars, teach people how to fix cars, you're on the technical side of that. Mager is like a religion. And,
sorry, Thomas, it's your company's one, so you have to log in.
Okay, well, tell you what.
We'll go back?
We don't have to show it.
Okay.
So we were asked to do a large project for the state of Ohio, and it involved redoing their curriculum and making it more performance-based. And Mager's training philosophy is very disciplined, and it takes a while to get it exactly right. So it's criterion invested training so that you actually have a clear objective. Under what conditions does that need to happen? and how important is it? So our ID used one of the tools out there to actually build a tool within a couple of days that would apply Mager principles to everything that we write. So is that going to put him out, do we still need him? Yep, but he can do twice as much work right now. And even better, it's effective, because the more Magerized, which we call it, the more Magerized it is, the more effective it's going to be, right? So, and those are the kind of things that it's not about the AI, it's not really about the technical stuff, it's about the problem that you can solve with it. And it's a pretty simple message, but I wanted to get that across for sure. So what faculty can do, we say citizen developer. That's a non-programmer who's building applications, which is a nightmare from an IT standpoint. But that's what's happening out there, right? So if you can consider that, hey, if I'm a citizen developer, what skills do I need to identify problems and match them with the right applications? That's going to bring the most value to a company to hire me, right? And maybe, we should have a certification or a decoder ring or something if you're able to apply that discipline. And I'll leave you with one final thought. So AI won't replace your students, but students who use AI will. They'll definitely do a better job.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Okay, so with that, we'll start with our panel questions. Some of what you presented may have addressed some of these questions. That's okay. So if there's something that you wished you had included, now's your chance, or something you really want to drive home. So let me start with our first question. And I'm smiling because I didn't put my glasses on. From your vantage point in industry, what are the most critical AI-related skills our college students need to demonstrate on day one to be competitive in the job market? I think you might have touched on some of that.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add, or Raj? No, I have mine.
I mean, can you teach somebody to identify the right problem and come up with an AI-powered solution? And in a small way, it can just be a small pilot, but if you have that skill set, you're very valuable and very employable.
I'll add that with a lot of the new people that I've hired, it takes them a while to understand what the business is trying to do. And that gets in the way of unlocking what they have to offer. I mean, they have a lot to offer. They are young, energetic. They are not, encumbered by a lot of other things. They can pick up technology really fast. But because they can't grab the concept of the company, the business model, they really struggle with it. And so I would love to see young people coming in with a very open mind. Yes, they have to know what prompting is. They have to know Notebook LM and Gemini and all this other stuff. But they also have to go beyond that, and they have to show to me that they understand my business kind of at the next level because they ask AI about it. It's shocking every time I ask AI about my company or competitor's company, what it can tell me. And so if I interviewed a person who had done that, they'll go to the top of the list.
Thank you. All right. Are there specific AI tools or platforms beyond the standard LLMs that students should master to stand out in your hiring process? Or do you believe we are already at the point where the software and skills are becoming more industry dependent, that is healthcare, accounting, graphics?
Well, in terms of vertical market dependent, to some extent, particularly in the medical area, there are tools and companies that really focus on that, but I don't think it's going to be siloed as much in terms of, like, if I'm taking classes, should I target the vertical market I want to get my job in? It's more important just to get the fundamental skills of, how do I identify a problem, how do I solve it with AI, and then that can be applied anywhere. And I guess for me, once you realize that you're a citizen developer and there's a discipline to it, and if you have that framework and you apply it and then you're successful, you can apply that anywhere. It doesn't matter what the industry is. In fact, I mean, you could apply it to, let's say I'm doing a paper in a certain area of the humanities, and it's going to be on a famous author. And I'm going to cheat and have the AI write it, right, and submit it. And you can look at it and go, well, that's really good. That's too good, right? Or you could challenge the student to go a little bit deeper and maybe use AI to research what was society like when that was written. What's the author's background? I mean, really go deep on that and maybe come up with something that they couldn't do without AI, but something important that they were able to do as a better job, an accomplishment with it, as opposed to just cheating and doing just what you're asking for. So one suggestion like that, just to harness it and help your students harness it. And I'll throw it to you.
So we have a lot of different jobs in our company. We're a software company. So when we interview coding software people, we want to know, do you know what cursor is or something like that? Do you use it? What do you think of it? Like, how much faster does it make you? Have you done the research on other productivity studies about cursor, you know? Or if it's a design, UI, UX design person, we want to know, yes, you know, Figma and Canva and all that, but do you use AI for that? You know, I'll share with you an example. We hired a designer from one of the UC campuses, you know, hard to get admission. I know from parents who have kids, but it's so frustrating when it takes the designer like 2 weeks to come to me with a draft mock-up, which is not going to make the cut. Then I give feedback. Another 2 weeks go by, still is not good enough. And then I say, did you try AI? No. Why not? I didn't think of it. Okay. Can you come back to me with an AI design? Maybe it takes long. I say, okay, why don't you try it right now? So she uploads it. Immediately AI gives a modification, which is like way better. Now, think about it from a business point of view. If you could have gone back to the customer in 1 day instead of like 14 days, that's a massive difference in terms of renewals and expansions and things like that. So we want to see students who, whether they're coders or designers, we want to see that they know what AI can do, right? Or even if it's writing and research. Do you know the difference between Notebook LM and Gemini? You know, what can this do for you that this other one cannot do? So things like that. These are some concrete examples. And if I interviewed a student who just, you know, hit any of these points, then I can trust that they can cover the other things too.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And before this panel started today, we were talking because maybe some of you are similar to me, that my introduction to AI has only been in academics. I've been a professor my entire adult life. I've been at Saddleback for 26 years and I'm back in school right now. And so in that realm, I'm a student. So it's been interesting for me to shift from thinking of it as we're teaching our students like, you know, AI is cheating, don't cheat. And then they go get a job and the employer is saying exactly the opposite. Why didn't you use AI? Well, because I've been taught for the last 4 years not to use it and now you're expected to. So I find this shift in my thinking really, really interesting and helpful. So staying in that lane of hiring, how important is ethical AI awareness, bias, privacy, transparency when hiring, and how do you assess that in candidates during interviews?
So obviously you're going to have a conversation and tell me what you would do in this situation and challenge them with scenario-based stuff. But as part of becoming a citizen developer, critical part is the IT department still has to set up guardrails and security. And then part of that is technical and part of it actually is legal exposure. So if you don't support ethical use of AI, if you don't make sure that it's not biased in a way that later when people look at your training or product, whatever, you're going to have a financial problem. So, I mean, it's kind of good news, I think, that this actually makes it easier to analyze things and detect bias or unethical behavior. And you got to know, if you're a company, your customers can do that very easily. So if people are using AI to develop, they should keep that in mind.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. There's also another aspect of ethical use of AI, which is that not to try to pass on AI work as your own work. I know that academia is very sensitive to that. And in industry, we encourage AI use, but then there's also a responsibility to be transparent with the customers on what processes and methods we are following, especially in the service side. There's the product licensing. There it's clear that these features are AI-powered, but in the services side.
And can I steal content and not get sued? Well, it kind of depends, right? I mean, in general, yeah, because it's not going to get tracked back to you, but then you build an application that is a news update thing to be on your internet site or whatever. And where is it getting its information? Is that an opportunity for an attorney to go, hey, got a copyright violation here, and a company with deep pockets. So,
yeah, that's also very interesting, because I'm learning, and maybe I'm behind the curve on this, but there are, like with citing sources, there's now a way to cite AI if you use AI in your writing. That's news to me. I try not to use it. That's a lie. Okay. How is AI changing the types of rules available in your sector, and what new job titles or functions are emerging that students should be targeting? New job titles, that's interesting.
You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so as I kind of alluded to in my previous response, we are looking at, when I'm working with a UI UX designer, I can already see that 3 years ago, the way I worked with a UI UX designer is not the same today, because we have Nano Banana, from Google. It's the model that makes images. Everybody's familiar with that? Yeah. So there's some discussion going on inside our company that maybe we need to radically rethink the role of a UI UX designer. So we think that, because what I said earlier, like the context and everything, Nano Banana doesn't know that, right? It can't do user research on our users and segment them by senior, junior, and so on. So the UI UX designer, who a few years ago would have been just kind of spending tons and tons of time inside of Figma and then doing a little bit of time with UX research, now it can be completely different. It can be a lot less time fighting with Figma, 1,000 buttons in it. It's very complicated for somebody like me to look at it. Can spend a lot more time in UI UX research. And even when interviewing potential customers, they could be using AI at that moment too. Like Gemini is transcribing things and surfacing insights. So, they can go that much faster in really nailing the user personas and what they value how much. So that's an example of a role that is changing. In software, we have old software engineers. I've been asking them every year, are you using AI? No. Using AI? Not really. And then we have young ones who always have cursor up. And the difference between the two is the rate at which we can ship features. The older one, and then it's like 10x difference in how fast we can ship. And so, yes, all the roles are redefined in this way. And so far, there's no elimination in our company. We are a small company. We have a lot of growth opportunities. So our goal, our secret or not secret, our approach is how can we gain competitive advantage on companies that have 100 times more employees than us. As a 10, 20 person company, can we compete with other companies that have 500 employees. So
on the other end of the scale, let's talk about Microsoft. How do I get a job at Microsoft? They pay more than most of their competitors. It's been kind of rocky the past couple of years. They laid a lot of people off and they rehired a lot of people. It used to be a more stable environment. Microsoft assumes, or you can demonstrate, that you've got some fundamental either design or programming related experience, but what they look for is, do you understand design thinking? Most important part of that is empathy. And can you work with a team using design thinking in whatever product of the week, right? The product part doesn't matter as much, but can you create something that's useful on the other end and use empathy so you understand the user's problem and situations? If you can help us design products like that, we'll continue to be successful.
Thank you. Maybe similar to that, how are workforce training needs evolving? So do you prefer candidates who come prepared in AI, or do you invest in upskilling after hire, or have a preference?
I can take it real quick. So I can share, we're a small company also, I can share how we do it, but I think it's more valuable, large employers and how they do that. So there's too much training on AI. It's mind-boggling. And then the fact that the products are evolving means that you might get certified in a certain area and then have to go back and do it again, right? So companies that shepherd new employees through what they need for a project need to know how to identify the right training for what they're doing. So it's the same process, the same framework process that I described. And it's not being used by other large companies. One of Microsoft's mission is to get everybody on that page, because for them, 12 months goes by, everybody licensed Copilot, right? But only half of our people are achieving an ROI. Well, that's not good for Microsoft, because maybe I go to a different brand now, or I get rid of these people and get people that are smarter. What's the problem, right? So I think keeping that in mind from an employability standpoint is really important.
So when we are looking at technical disciplines like software engineering or cognitive science, things like that, we're still sorting them by GPA, just to be very blunt, because there's nothing, in my 25 years of hiring people, you can't make up for, you didn't pay attention in school. In these areas, there's just nothing you can do. And so I'm looking for a person who is very, is put in their time and they understand all these basics, and then they value AI and they're open to it. I'm not looking for them to have spent, 100 hours doing a project necessarily. I can just ask them some questions, and if they have mastered their subject and they're open to using AI, we can do all the rest after that. That's not a problem. Because, the big problem in getting work done by AI is having the ability to evaluate what it is giving you. And that you have to be an expert to evaluate that, and you have to have put in the time to learn your subject matter, right? Now, there are other areas like sales and things like that where GPA is not correlated, in my experience, with what people are actually able to get done. It's just completely different. And so, but again, there we are not really looking to see that they have used a lot of AI. It's something else, and it's hard to put that in words in my experience.
I understand. I think I understand what you're saying. And I like that you still consider the GPA so that students know that their hard work, even if they're not proficient in AI, still counts for something. Right. It still matters because it's speaking to maybe their character and their work ethic. Okay. Let's see. Many of our students and employees worry about job displacement. Based on your work with clients, where do you see AI creating more opportunities than it displaces? And I think you touched on this a little bit. And how can students and employees, like employees here at Saddleback, position themselves to benefit?
I'd like to hear from the audience.
That is not allowed. No, just kidding. Well, I know this because part of these questions are drafted from feedback. And I think one concern that faculty have is that we're going to become irrelevant and that AI will take over. And I think some faculty started feeling that even after COVID when we moved online. So if you were going to address like concerns that teaching is going to become obsolete, what might you say?
Well, I can give you my opinion, but from any skilled specialist from that point of view, your world's going to change. And you really need to change. Either you're getting really good at using these tools or really good at training students to use these tools, or you might get displaced, right? So you want to stay ahead of that curve. But I don't think it would be in the college's interest to just say, okay, I need less people now, like, let's get rid of the people. I don't know. Would it be better to say, how can I make learning more effective? How can I get a better throughput because I made it efficient? And from an academic standpoint, I don't think that's any different than in the private sector. It's like, what problems can I solve? How can I make the world a better place? How can I use this tool to do that? Is the best way to attack that. We changed the name of our company because we can see AI cannibalizing corporate training and boring page-turning e-learning, right? Or instructor-led training where I stand in front of the room and show you PowerPoint slides. That's all going to go away. I mean, it's going away as we speak. Part of what we love to do, and this guy's really good at this, is the cutting-edge stuff, right? Whatever the latest XR and AI is applying that. What we're also finding is we take a step back and say, you know, you have e-learning, and now you can do 10 times as much of it in the same amount of time with the same budget, right? But since you can do that, can you make it effective? Can you finally get skills transfer? Because we've always struggled with that. I can make you smarter, but hard to teach you to work with your hands. And so by taking a step back and looking at integrating AI into stuff that people really understand, then they become the leader. They become the citizen developer, right? How can you empower them? How can you empower yourself to be able to do a better job is kind of the bottom line. I think that's the best insurance against getting displaced.
Yeah, I think I touched on this in my slides. Job displacement, I don't think is happening or about to happen. Task displacement is happening and will happen more and more. You know, like in K-12 teachers' life, if you think about it, I mean, half of their job is classroom management and just dealing with psychology of all that. I have a very good friend. He was an algebra teacher all his life. He said, Raj, I can't remember what percentage. It was like 80% of my job is psychology. Like kids think they cannot do this. Yes, you can, and that sort of thing. Like you were saying, somebody told you you could do it, right? So I would say that the opportunity, remember the gap between the red part and the blue part? That is the thing to focus on, you know, for all of our jobs and for the benefit of the kids for whom we come to work every day and for the broader community.
Yeah, I like that because I'm a big fan of people and human communication is my area. And so I do think that our staff in the Gateway building and our counselors and our instructors in the room, I think the human contact is still so valuable because I always say, like, you know, a student doesn't decide to go and study law because we had some cool graphic on our website. It's because some professor looked at this student and said, wow, you have a real aptitude for this, or have you ever thought of this? So I lean towards that. I like the idea of task replacement, but not the person or the job. Okay, so looking 3 to 5 years ahead, what emerging AI trends or capabilities should our curriculum prioritize to ensure graduates remain future ready? So staying in that theme of academia.
Did you really say 3 to 5 years?
3 to 5 minutes, that was a typo.
Yeah. I don't think you can try to predict it, but it's got to be an iterative process. You're going to correct it every 3 or 4 months. It's great to look out because I can assume that all of our traditional corporate training development won't be around in 3 years, right? So how do our mission is always, we focus on frontline employee, people don't sit at the desk, right? So we might do tools, mobile tools, we might do X reality, whatever, to help them, guide them through step by step to do a better job, right? Well, it turns out when we develop a course and they're going to be sitting in the classroom, and then when they're going to be sitting in the lab, and then when they're going to be on the job, is the same deliverable now because of AI. So I can take the subject matter expertise that we would use to develop the course and just make that the source for the AI, and it doesn't take that much extra time. But by delivering more value that way, we get 100% retention because we know you'll forget 40% of what happened in the course 6 months later when you need it, right? It's in your pocket, so you can refer to that. So being able to kind of change the paradigm for what you're doing to deliver more results is like what to think about with AI. But you don't necessarily have to be Steve Jobs or whatever to come up with the iPhone. But it's kind of like that when you develop your own application and then you realize, or your own approach, and you see things flowing better. That's kind of fun, right? And so it really, I would just invite everybody to become a citizen developer and do things that make the world a better place.
Yeah, I think there's I think I mentioned this earlier, that there's a huge burden. I think burden is maybe not the right word, but there's a lot of opportunity for contribution that education sector, academia can make. Because, like I said, you have to figure out what do you teach and how do you teach it and how do you assess it. And AI has got to be deeply interwoven into all of that, right? That's a lot of work because, I saw what it takes to get one course syllabus approved and then 6 months later, something else is going to happen. So if you have to take the entire course catalog and reimagine all of it, that's just an enormous amount of work. And like your question is, what capabilities should our curriculum prioritize? That would be my guess. If I look at the question differently, like LLMs, what's next? So the answer that I have for that is physics AI and physical AI. That's where everything is going to go, because LLMs are just text. I think they have beaten text to death. Whether the text is code or a story or poetry, whatever, it feels like it's done. So the next thing is 3D models, physics simulations, robots, computer vision, all working together. And whichever departments here deal with that kind of thing, they have, not only they have the burden of reimagining their curriculum because the curriculum is the same, but the AI is here, but they have another thing on top of that, right? So that's how I look at it.
Thank you. That's really interesting. I used to serve on curriculum. I'm glad I'm not co-chairing that right now. Okay, both of you work at the intersection of AI and real world operations. So from your vantage point, what are the most transformative AI applications you're seeing in business and industry right now? And what makes them game changers rather than shiny toys?
I can give you three very quick, which I know everyone will relate to. So competency-based learning. Haven't we always wanted to identify what people already know and just teach them what they don't know, right? A lot of advantage to that. So competency-based learning. Our company was, two English teachers formed it because they had started a competency-based high school 30 years ago. And until the community around them grew to the point where it just took too long. Like if I'm pretty smart, I get through high school in 3 years, you might take 5 years. We don't care as long as you're competent, right? But having all the variations to personalize the training back then just wasn't practical. It was just too expensive to do that, right? Well, that might have changed, right? So with some help from AI, you could personalize the delivery, whether it's probably a blended combination of you maybe being more the coach, knowledge stuff maybe being a little bit more online. But if I need 30% covered because I'm pretty smart, Raj is smarter, he needs 20%, but maybe the person there needs 100% because they're having trouble with what's going on. AI can assess that and figure that out quickly enough that now you can apply competency-based learning, which to me is really exciting. And then the other part is in the flow of work. So what do I develop to educate somebody in the classroom? Got that. Okay, now I can make do a blend with online and make it more competency-based. So that's even better. But if I'm out there and I'm on the job and it's something that I got trained on a year ago, and it's a high safety issue, critical, I need something else in the flow of work to get me to the point. And it's not just information, it's actually kind of update a skill because I'm about to do something that's very dangerous. And having that as part of the thinking is, to me anyways, is really exciting. And then the third example, does anybody have a third example? I'm still trying to get some audience.
I have a few more examples.
Agentic coding.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, if you look at the Anthropic chart and the difference between 0.5 coverage and 1.0 coverage, that's agentic coding. That is writing the software to get us to 1.0. So everything changes logarithmically. Everything happens very quickly from this point forward.
That's brilliant. I mean, that's exactly the kind of thinking I think that you can apply.
Can I go next?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So we see three areas. One is soft skills. It's kind of strange to think that AI is going to help humans develop human skills, but it is true. The problem with soft skills, I think we all understand it, it's not like a secret, is that it takes a lot of practice. And, like in any engineering school I attended, there was no course on it. So how do we learn it? And so then it becomes a thing about, like, in your family, were there people, or in your community and that sort of thing. And that's okay to some. First of all, it doesn't level the playing field. Like school levels the playing field, that doesn't. And schools don't have courses on that. So it's a big problem. And we have done a lot of work on that, and we are super excited. I think it's a game changer. When you can talk, we can type, and you can get immediate feedback. So that's number one. Number two is agentic training, creation, and delivery. So now we have built AI agents, and others have. You tell it, and it builds the whole curriculum, and it does it at a very granular level. And then it also delivers it to everybody differently, just like Tom was saying, competency-based. So, AI tutors, it's a 50 or maybe 80-year-old concept. There's like tens of thousands of papers on intelligent tutoring systems. And it has never worked. It has never really, and because LLMs were never there, and now they're there. So agentic training, creation, and delivery, and constant learning and improvement, that is a game changer. And we are doing a lot of work in that. And third area is consumer insights. So we're doing a project right now where suddenly our training platform is applicable to market insights. And for many years, people said to me, hey, why don't you shift over to marketing side? There's a lot bigger budgets and all of that. But I've got that teacher bug deep inside of me, so I can't leave the education and training field. But I'm happy that we are doing this market research, because all of the things that we built for training are applicable. And then we have to add some more things. But there's a company founded by teenagers that became $1 billion company in like 3-4 years. And what they did is they used LLMs to simulate humans. So there's like 20, 30 people here. Imagine if I write a big long prompt that says, simulate President Stern or simulate Kim. I'll have to tell it a lot. But if I try hard enough, I bet it can get to the point where if I gave him a 10-question survey and if I gave you a 5-question survey, it will be 95% accurate in how it filled that out. Now think about the utility of that in clinical trials and all these other areas where it's a pain to get survey responses back and you have to wait for weeks and months, and the economic value of being able to get that just like that. So these kids, they started when they were teenagers, and 3-4 years, and now the company is worth $1 billion. And I think it's just a sign of things to come. When these technologies get better and better at simulating humans, consumer insights just goes to the next level.
I don't even know how to respond to that, because one, good for those kids. And two, it's exciting and impressive, but it's still
Yes.
there's still something about it.
It is.
That doesn't sit totally well. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I love this conversation. Let's see. Many organizations are integrating generative AI. We're talking about this, agentic AI, simulations, and immersive learning. Can you share a concrete example where these tools significantly improved productivity, training, or outcomes? And I think, Raj, maybe you were just alluding to that.
We have a couple of examples I can share. So UCLA Health System has been a customer of ours for a long time. They use our platform to create these talking characters. They played all different kinds of roles, standardized patients, things like that. One day they said, we want to use it for a very difficult conversation that needs to happen when a patient comes back to get the results of their cancer diagnosis. Extremely difficult conversation. Our clinicians are really struggling with it. They don't quite know what to say, how to say, what not to say, all of that. So we work with them. Mainly, we just provide them with our software. They do everything themselves. But they shared with me the results of the study. It was just very surprising and positive. So what they showed was that before the training, they asked people, hey, how prepared do you feel for this conversation? Or do you feel unprepared, unsure, or do you feel totally prepared, very prepared? And everybody's responses were clustered in unprepared or unsure. And after this training, which was just, I don't know how long it was, maybe half an hour, maybe a little longer, everybody's answer jumped to prepared or very prepared. So that's an example of, simple use of this technology, but it significantly improved training outcomes, right? And then the second one was from the Chief Digital and AI Office at the DoD. So they had a process to audit AI ML models. Like these days in the news, you hear a lot about stuff. I can't be too specific, but that used to take forever. And so we built an agentic AI tool that sped that up. When we plotted the time taken by the human and the time taken by the AI, you couldn't see the bar for the AI next to the time taken by the human. And these are very complex questions. These are not like yes, no type questions. These are like, free response. There's hundreds of them, and you have to comb through a lot of documents like that. So that's another example where our team, we ourselves saw the power of this technology. And that was a couple of years ago, last year.
Thank you. Barry, anything to add? No?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you're a doctor. You're working for a health care organization that gives you about 10 minutes of FaceTime with a patient. So the nurse gets the weight and blood pressure, and then you get the 10 minutes. And that organization launches wellness programs. And obesity is a very popular one, but usually can expand that 10 minutes to 30 minutes because it's uncomfortable, it's emotional, et cetera, et cetera. So doctors don't like that program. I mean, they would love to have the time to deliver it, but they really don't. So we take the knowledge about the program, ingest it into an AI. The AI becomes another assistant, like the nurse that takes your weight and blood pressure and stuff. Well, the AI can tell you all about the program before you talk to the doctor. And then you're more informed, it's going to take less time, and the doctor can have you follow up with that AI. And it takes nobody extra time. And I'll be darned if it works. I mean, it's like you can ask it logical questions, and then if I say, what about brain surgery? Can you help me with that? It'll say, well, for brain surgery, you need to go to the neurology department, and this is their procedure for going. So we couldn't break it. We couldn't get it to hallucinate. So if you think about the application, all the programs and institutions that would be better if more people understood them and had a way to utilize them, I think it's got universal application.
I'm going to go off script here a little bit because you're getting me thinking about the healthcare system, which I think about a lot, partly because I'm in a caregiving mode. I'm not sure how to frame this, but senior citizens or people with declining capabilities like vision and hearing would not be able to access their charts or read them or understand them, or people may lack, just health literacy skills overall. So how do we balance the AI with varying capabilities?
What a great question. Wow. So in other words, you can empower somebody by filling in the gaps and do it. Maybe they progressively get less capable, and so it would adjust itself. Yeah, I think you got $1 billion company.
Goodbye. I have someplace to be. Gotta get started. I would love $1 billion. I
think
love $5 at this point.
that's a brilliant.
Thank you. Anything you want to add?
No.
Okay. From a leadership perspective, what distinguishes organizations that successfully scale AI from those that stay stuck in pilot mode? Are there clear success patterns you've observed?
Yeah, I can go first. So it's very simple. Anything that happens in the world is because somebody did it. Somebody cared about it enough. And that's what we're seeing the world's biggest biomedical device company is our customer. And this project is happening because there's a person who's a visionary, doesn't have all PhDs and none of that, but there is an innovator. And same thing I see in other companies where my relatives or friends work. They're all about my age, and I have so many stories of like frustration over here and excitement over here, and so my simple answer is the companies that are getting it done, getting results, they have innovative people who want to lead, who are not afraid.
I have a much simpler answer. So the first rule of change management is you can't be a little bit pregnant. It takes 9 months. You can't just try it for a month and then maybe come back and look at it. I'm sorry, it takes 9 months. So leadership has to accept that, and they have to provide the resources and the support. And that used to be much more challenging with traditional and our, being in the training business. And then with e-learning, and you can build that stuff faster, and the XR and stuff, but those were all took too long. They were too expensive, which made it a high risk for anybody. Sure, that's going to change everything, and it's going to take me a year to even know about the first piece. Well, that's really changed with AI. And so from a leadership point of view, if I expect my direct reports to adopt AI so we're more competitive than our other people in the same market, I got to give them what they need to be able to do that. And the good news is you can fail fast with AI. I mean, you can cycle through stuff quick enough that maybe that lowers the risk.
All right, thank you. I won't forget that metaphor. Okay, so one question, and maybe we'll just a quick answer to it. I think it's an important question, but I would like to leave time to get some Q&A. I think that will make you happy, right? So finally, if you could give one piece of practical advice to our audience, something they can do in the next 90 days to help with their students, or to help their students forward with AI, what would that be? What would that practical advice be?
So challenge them to do one thing inside your discipline. Obviously, it's going to be very different. One thing to apply AI that is enough outside of the box that it's not so much like they're going to use AI to cheat, or they're going to, the writing's going to be a little bit better or whatever, but maybe a little bit bigger in terms of a challenge. And that practical application may be something that they want to have along with their resume for their job interview.
Yeah, basically, I would suggest everybody to try to add an innovative piece to your curriculum. You can involve the students, or you can just give them the task, or you can build something on your own inside Google. I understand all of you have a Google Workspace, and it has Workspace Studio and Gemini. It's incredibly well designed, makes it easy to build things, automation tools, widgets, etc. As a teacher, whenever I've taught a lot of classes, I could never teach anything if I didn't understand everything about it. And so if you're going to, bring AI into your classroom, you've got to build stuff first.
All right. Thank you very much. My brain is thinking about things I could do. Like, I like the example of maybe they research something, but like, hey, what was going on in that time period to just make whatever they did just a little better, and then they're going to learn something. And I do think if you give your students an opportunity to use AI, then for the assignments that you don't want them to use it, they're more willing to accept that. If you just give a little bit and not just say no AI at all, then all that reactance sets in, I guess. Okay. Hey, are there questions from the audience? Okay, I'm coming. 1 and then 2.
Who had it? Nancy?
So far, something is missing with the AI. And for me, it's very important in the classroom to detect how to feel or to see how my students are feeling. Do you see that coming soon? That AI will detect how the person is feeling at the moment?
Yeah, so there are papers going back 10, 20 years where people have been trying to figure out how the students are feeling, and the difference over that period of time is the sensing technologies have developed a lot, right? So a long time ago, you would have to give them a survey. How are you feeling? A smiley face or whatever. And then over time, maybe the surveys got better or longer or whatever. Or maybe you took it on computer instead of the paper or on your phone and so on. But now there are more and more techniques. Like even if you ask them, LLM can do a lot, right? So we are working on things that if you are going through our training, how can we pick up on how you're feeling without asking you how are you feeling? And if you have cameras, then it just becomes a lot easier. So it's definitely coming. It can be done today, depending on how much you want to do it.
How do you do it as a human being? How do you assess how your students are feeling?
Oh, I feel it. When a student comes to my classroom, especially when I was at high school, and parents love me for that because I know exactly how they feel. Because I know my students. If one day they come and then everything change, we can see it. When we really care about our students, we are not just teaching, we are seeing everything. Yeah.
Got it. So machine vision, which I think you were alluding to, is really gotten scary good. If I can teach the AI what behavior looks like, that's one option. And then if I can embed in the learning process, instead of just a knowledge-based check-in, a feeling-based check-in, and talk to them, quote unquote, right? Those would be 2 areas that you could do an algorithm and then have that continually being assessed. You might be looking, this sounds terrible, but you might be looking at a dashboard, right? Just to see, hey, there's a couple of students who are not getting this. They're not comfortable at all. It's never going to work as well as you, as a human being, with your experience, but it might get you a little bit closer to that.
Thank you. We have another question in the back.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the discussion. Well, first of all, I'm in the computer area, and I think both of you probably are very well aware of the large number of computer science bachelor's degree people that attain that have not been able to find a job in the last couple of years. So my question really comes from, we've been talking about skills, and then I want to compare that with degrees. Do you hire based upon degree, or do you hire based upon skill? And is there a difference between the two?
So the trend is to not hire based on degree. The trend is to look at your portfolio, to put you through a behavioral interview. And that's hip and cool in the tech industry right now. And that'll probably change in a year or two, but that's my understanding. And we hire based on your portfolio. I'll be really honest. I need to see what you've done, and then tell me about it. Tell me a story about it. And it might depend on the job role. I mean, if in computer, hiring a programmer today, looking at a sample of their work, same question: how much did the AI do? How much do you actually have the skill set to do that? Because my son-in-law, his experience, he's a full stack developer, 10 years experience. The new kids coming in are able to use AI to build an application, maybe faster than him, right? But they don't know how that happened. So if there's a problem later, there's going to be some implication to that. So if you've been through your program with a degree and stuff, I mean, you'd have a better chance, I think, to the stuff you can't work out in the interview or looking at their samples. I mean, I think a degree is valuable, but it's just a trend. Do you find the same trend or same feedback from your students?
I'm bringing this up because Raj brought up the importance of skills. Okay. But he was also talking about how these entry-level people that they're bringing in, and I'm assuming they just got their engineering degrees. Okay. And so I'm asking the question, what is more important for you when you're looking at candidates? Is it their skills or is it their degree? And how do you evaluate that? Or is there an overlap between the two?
I'm laughing because I'm old school. I thought that, and I have a narrow view of engineering. Like, I only have done one degree, which is in engineering, 2 degrees in engineering, and then I have an MBA. So in the field of engineering, I mean, I don't know if there's a big difference. Maybe there's a nuance to these words that I'm missing, because we use the word skill a lot because we do like soft skills is a skill, but there's no degree in soft skills that I know of, right? So in engineering, when we are hiring, we are looking at things like, what courses have you taken? What grades did you get? How are you answering the questions? Do you have projects that you've done that you can talk about? So in that narrow context, it's like without a degree, you probably won't get an interview. Many years ago, we tried out graduates of boot camp. There were several of them, and it was always disappointing. I can't go into too much of it because it was a long time ago. And we decided that we are never going to interview anybody who didn't have a computer science degree and just went to a boot camp.
Is AI going to change that? Because we just talked about personalized learning, where you can get into a course without having a degree that could learn that kind of skill. And then they could come to you and have this AI portfolio saying what they've learned and say, hey, am I going to be eligible for one of your positions?
So if you do get in the door at Microsoft, part of your interview is going to be a couple of people with your experience level and a whiteboard. And they're going to give you impossible to solve programming problems. And if you can solve them and how long it takes, it's all behavioral based. So if you can get in the door, I don't think a degree is a problem there, but it is with a lot of companies. And then, do I have a portfolio? There's no way for me to know for sure that this is just your work, but if you can tell me about it and explain it, then you understand it, and then you do the whiteboard thing, and that's typically what's happened. My experience, anyways.
Thank you.
On the continuum of pessimism to optimism about job displacement and the future of the workforce vis-a-vis AI's evolution, you both kind of fit in the optimistic category, either directly or by allusion. I want to flesh that out a little bit. If we think about that very now famous Anthropic chart of blue and red, and blue fields extending out to 1.0 in so many sectors already, and probably extending out to more in the next year or two by virtue of agentic software development. And if we think about the definition of that being doubling the time or having the time to create a specific skill or doubling the amount of accomplishments that you can make in the same period, there's a CFO somewhere saying, well, that would be cutting my workforce by half to maintain the same level of productivity. There's another side to this, which is we're all working 2.5 days. So what I want to know is, are we all working 2.5 days, or do we have 50% unemployment? And what justifications do you make to lead you to that conclusion?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have insights at the macro level beyond some things here. I'm work at a small company, and so at our level, everything I said is kind of what I'm planning to do and what I see. At the macro level, task displacement for sure, job displacement, hopefully not, probably not. That's kind of my stance. I can't tell you which way it's going to go. I think which way it goes has a lot to do with politics. 25 years ago when I was reading those books, the word politics was nowhere in my consciousness. I mean, I knew it would come up, but I was trying to be an engineer, trying to get my PhD and that cool job at the end of it. So I just have to apologize, President Stearns, that I don't really have a high conviction around either side of that answer.
If I can piggyback on, so I don't know, but I think if I'm a student, I should worry about it. And if I worry about it, give me some tools to deal with it. What can I do to make sure that, I assume the, lower level or analyst functions are going to gradually get eliminated. What can I do? What can I learn to be a countermeasure for that?
Can I ask one follow-up question? For you, Raj, 12 and 16-year-olds? What are you telling them?
What I tell them now is pretty much what I told them as soon as they could understand my words. Study physics and engineering. And it seems to have stuck because they're both pushing in those directions. And it's not because of job or whatever. I mean, I don't know. It's just because that's kind of how I have come to understand the world, and that's the lens through which it kind of makes sense, and I find a lot of joy and satisfaction in that. So,
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Is that Art back there? Okay. And he tells them to eat their vegetables? Brush your teeth?
the younger one, yeah, I have to.
Thank you for taking my question. It's just going to be science specific, but it seems like, at least for me, all the impressive AI achievements so far have been built off of a bedrock of strong discipline area knowledge, right? Whether it be a chemist describing a new compound or whatever. So, and I guess as a science guy, it's important for me to have students learn the subject matter well. So the question for you is this: I want my students to have a rigorous education, right? Because I feel that rigor is what makes education transformative, right? But the question is that what does rigor mean in the AI age? Because it seems like AI is so powerful that what's important ought to be changing, but I don't have a clear vision of how I need to evolve, let's say a chemistry class, a biology class, a physics class to make it truly rigorous, right? Because I think you're alluding to the fact that they have to have an idea, they have to have a concept. And you could have this, engines create stuff, but if you don't have a sense for aesthetics, you're not going to be able to tell a crappy picture from a great picture, whether it be music or not. So I want to bang home the point where the discipline expertise is key. It's just that in the AI age, some of the stuff comes so easily. It's kind of hard for students to get the message that yes, you have to be an expert, you have to learn something rigorously, but I don't quite know how to evolve what rigor ought to mean, right? So if you could be kind enough to comment on that.
Yeah, can I go? Go ahead. So, I have been analyzing the NGSS for about 7-8 years now, ever since it came out. And it's beautiful in many ways, like how it breaks down everything. And I've always wanted to codify that in an intelligent tutoring system so that it keeps everyone in their zone of proximal development and gives you problems that are at your skill level. So I see a couple of layers in your question. One is, as a teacher, concretely, how do I redo my curriculum? That's one level of the question. And that's more of a curriculum design question, and where do I allow AI and how should it be used, all of that. I think I had those things on my slide as well. And those are, really hard questions. I think that it can be solved, but I don't have ready-made anything tips here. The other side of rigor, which in case you are referring to that, is that, I see the tendency in my kids and a lot of other younger kids, they're kind of impatient. They don't want to struggle with it, So when I was in high school, I picked up Resnick and Halliday and I read the whole chapter and I went to the problem. The first problem I couldn't solve for hours. I couldn't even understand what it was asking. And that told me that I understood nothing in the chapter. So I went back and read it, and then I could solve a few more of them. And that was the first time I learned that, okay, understanding something means that you can solve all these problems. This was in 10th or 11th grade or something. And that was I think that is what I'm reminded of when you talk about rigor, right? And if that's what you mean by rigor, then it's just a matter of using AI in appropriate ways that it builds that muscle and doesn't give a false illusion in any way. And there's a lot of pitfalls here. So this is the work of the education communities. How do you take the best of this thing and avoid the worst of this thing? Yeah. So about Google's LearnLM model?
With it a little bit, right?
So they advertise, we haven't used it yet, we are about to, but they advertise that it doesn't just give you the answers, it makes you think. But that's a good direction, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's hear it for our panelists today, Raj and Thomas. This was really informative. A lot to think about. Thank you to everybody who came out on a Friday afternoon. We had a really good turnout on the live stream as well. So this has been really great. All right, take care. Get a cookie if you didn't get one.
Thank you, Ben. Raj, pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Thomas, thank you.